Thank you so much, Danielle Garrett, for joining us today on the Magic of Cozy's podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So can you start off by telling us about your journey into writing magical cozy mysteries?
Yeah, so I always knew I wanted to be a writer. Even when I was a little kid, I used to take like cereal box things and make little book covers for myself, and I'd illustrate them. They were very professional, I can assure you. Uh, and would write stories, and as I grew up, it became a little bit of a more out of reach kind of a dream back in the day when traditional publishing was the only route to writing and publishing a book. And so then when indie publishing became an option, and kind of the rise of the Kindle happened, I started writing contemporary romance and started publishing my own. They were mostly novellas, under a different pen name. And they never really took off. I couldn't quite get my feet under me, but I kept wanting to write, and I wanted, I saw this as a very viable path for a career, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep trying. And I actually listened to a podcast episode with Amanda M. Lee, who is kind of the reigning queen of the paracozy, and she was talking about her books, and it was an indie author podcast, so it was more of like the business side of things. But when she was describing the genre she wrote in, I said, hold on, I could write something like that. That sounds amazing. And so I just was at the point where I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I didn't really feel like I have anything to lose. So I wrote my first, I read a whole bunch first, and then I wrote my first paranormal cozy mystery, which was Murder's a Witch. And it's cliche, but the rest is kind of history. It just kind of took off, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is where I was meant to be. So it's kind of a long answer, but it was a little bit of a roundabout sort of way of getting there. But yeah. So I guess thanks, Amanda.
So what inspired you to blend the elements of cozy mystery and witchy supernatural themes?
Yeah, I think I've always really liked magic in the real world type stories. Like I grew up, watching like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like the 90s version.
Yep,
Shout
me
out to
too.
Salem, my favorite little snarky cat. And shows like that, like Charmed and Practical Magic and Hocus Pocus and Halloween Town, like all of these movies and shows where there were witches, but they were in the real world and they kind of had to keep their magic on the down low. I just think there's something really interesting and compelling about this secret that lives in plain sight. And so for me, that's kind of where that's where I have the most fun with it is figuring out how does the magic work and how do we keep it a secret? How does it help them? What are they trying to do? And I think it just opens, like I love cozy mysteries where there isn't magic as well. However, I think it's extra fun when you get to add some magic, and it also can make the mysteries a little bit more layered simply because there's this additional component that you're also trying to keep a secret.
Yeah, I do agree. The cozy mystery with a little witchiness is even more cozy.
Yeah. And bonus points for talking animals.
Yeah. So how do you approach world building in your cozy mystery series and while making it believable?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a challenge. I think for me, I tend to write in two worlds. So I have my Beechwood Harbor world where it's like a human town, for lack of a better word, where magic is definitely a secret. Most of the people in town are not magical. And then I have Winterspell, which is like a magic town hidden in the human world. So there's, the fairy runs the coffee shop, and there's trolls, and I think there's like a real estate agent troll. There's like a whole bunch of magical creatures, but they're all in this town. So it's a little bit different because the magic can be a little bit more out and about when you're within the town itself. So I kind of approach them in different ways. I think the winter spell books get a little bit more fantastical just because I can play with different types of creatures and beings. But I usually start with going on Pinterest or on like DeviantArt and looking. I get really inspired by visuals, and so I tend to go looking for, the setting, basing it off someplace in the real world generally, and so I get pictures of the actual setting. What does that look like? And then go from there of, what did my characters look like, and what would a day in the life look like for them? And so then if you imagine okay, so this is what Holly would do on her day off. I kind of have to populate the world with the things that she would need or would want to go and do and explore. And then it kind of snowballs from there. I think that, for me, I focus on, being a cozy mystery, you have law enforcement. So you've got, like, in Holly's series, there's the magical law enforcement. Then there's also the local cops in the small town. So you have to figure out, okay, how do these two things interact? How would this work itself out? And everything has to have rules, of course, so that you can try your best to maintain the continuity. So yeah, I tend to start with visuals, and then I kind of drill in and keep asking myself questions until I feel like I have a solid foundation that I can start drafting. And then even within the drafting process, there will be new little tidbits and things that I come up with kind of on the fly, that I can then evaluate. Like, does that make sense with the rest of this, or not? So I hope that was I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And I'm going to deviate a little bit.
Ooh, okay.
In your series where the magic is out and about,
Mm-hmm.
how do you keep the mystery of the mystery
Mm-hmm.
and infusing magic without without giving it away or without solving the mystery too quickly?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it just depends a lot on the type of mystery. Like, not all of my books are murder mysteries. Some of them are like more what I kind of call a caper, where there's, a missing person, or there's an artifact that they have to find before it falls into the wrong hands. So it depends a little bit on what the type of mystery is. But I think that especially with the more like high stakes mysteries, like a murder, for example, I build it the same way that I would if there wasn't magic. So I think there is a kind of a push and pull, or a balance of not giving your main character or side characters too much power. You don't want them to be OP and like just able to solve it within a glance. And there's been times where I've kind of written myself into a corner because I go, well, wait a second, if they could do that, then they could have just done that in the beginning, and we would have solved this without, we'd be at brunch right now or whatever. Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a balance. I think that the thing is to make sure you fully understand your main character's limits, and then kind of go from there as to how because I think with cozy mysteries, you're always trying to figure out, why is my character even involved in this to begin with, right? Because usually the cozy mystery rule is that they're not law enforcement. They're not, really supposed to be investigating these things. They're just kind of bumbling into it and trying to make it make sense. So that's kind of its own little challenge. But when it comes to working with, magical law enforcement or things like that, I just tend to give them some sort of limiting factor, so that way they also cannot get to the solution ahead of my heroine, right? Because we definitely can't have that.
It wouldn't be cozy if the police
Right.
actually figured it out first.
Yeah, exactly. But it definitely is challenging. And I will say there's been times where I have written myself into a corner and then had to go, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Let's figure out how to redo this. And especially with a long series, if you get to book 6 or 7, you have those previous books that you have to remember all the different situations and rules and things that people did in those past books to make sure that there's that continuity. So it definitely can get challenging, for sure.
I just don't know how authors do it when they're like in their 20 something book. It's like, how do you even know?
I know. There's things in my books that they're all pretty small, but there's like little tiny inconsistencies here and there, like a name got swapped or something in one book. And as soon as I realize it, I'll go back and fix it. But
Yeah.
like in an audiobook, it'll still be there because I can't easily just change that. And so when a reader will come in my group and be like, wait a second, what about this? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I try really hard, but it's a lot of books.
Authors are people too.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't I was like in the era of AI and things. I'm like, well, you'll at least know that my books are written by humans, because
Still human error.
100%.
So what advice would you give to an aspiring author who is interested in writing paranormal cozy mysteries?
Yeah, I think like it's kind of basic, but I think the best thing is just to read. Read as many books that you can. Not even just paranormal cozies, but I find that for myself, um refilling that creative well is such an important part of my own creative process. And so immersing myself in story, whether that's movies or TV shows or books or, different types of media, it does really help. But I think if you're looking specifically to write a paranormal cozy, I think reading them to really understand the, like, I want to say formula, but that sounds wrong. But I guess, yeah, like in a way, it is kind of a formula. You think about like a TV show where there's like a murder mystery of the week type of thing. You've got a certain amount of suspects, a certain amount of red herrings, a certain amount. And it's not that every book has to follow that to the T, but I do think that having that foundation and that structure in your brain can really be helpful when you're setting out to write. So like when I was starting to get into it, I read a lot of books and then I started kind of dissecting them. So it was like, when does the murder happen? Or when do they get involved in the crime? Or at what point do they think they've solved it? And then they realize, oh no, we have to start at the beginning. And so there's just certain story beats that I think are important and helpful when you get going. So reading a lot and then dissecting and asking yourself what works for you as an author, because chances are if it works for you, it's going to work for the reader that you're also looking to write for. So I think that it serves two purposes. It helps you get the formula and the structure down, but it also can give you that inspiration and that whimsy factor that can help refill that creative well for sure.
Yeah, great. That's great advice. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. What is your definition of magic?
Okay, so I saw this question and I thought, okay, does she mean like in my books or does she mean like in real life? I don't know. So I have two answers. Okay, so in my books, magic is, a supernatural force. A lot of the time in my books, it's elemental in nature, so it comes from the earth. I really like that kind of vibe, I guess, the elemental magic. But if you were asking me magic in the real world, I always say that kindness is magic. And in my reader group, I'm always telling people, spread magic or spread kindness and like magic, because that's how we're all going to get through this thing.
Yeah, for sure. If you could have a magical ability or power, what would it be and why?
Okay. I also struggled with this one because there's too many to choose from. So I'm leaning on my own characters and the magic that's in my books. So I have a main character in the Sugar Shack Witch Mystery series. Her name is Rosella, and her power is that she can talk to animals. And I think that would be really helpful because I'm a fur baby mom. I have 3 dogs and 3 cats. And right now I have a foster mama and her 4 kittens. So there's just a bunch of animals in this house. And it would be really nice if I could just chat with them. I think especially like when they're not feeling good, it would just be so nice to reassure them and tell them like, I know we're going to the vet and that's very scary, but we're, it's for the best and it's good. So yeah, I think talking to animals would be really cool. And then in my Beechwood Harbor Magic Mystery series, Holly is the main character and she is a plant witch. And so she has a total green thumb and I'm very envious of her because she has this fabulous greenhouse and everything grows and nothing ever dies. And I can't keep a cactus alive. So I really would like to, yeah, it's a whole thing. I try. And that's the thing. That's the main thing. Is I just keep trying and eventually maybe I will figure this out. But that would be really cool to be able to make my garden dreams come true with minimal effort.
What is your favorite way to get cozy with a book?
Okay, so this day and age, I tend to be an audiobook almost exclusively. I think I'm probably like 90% audiobooks. So for me, I have to have something to do with my hands while I'm listening to an audiobook. So for me, if I'm trying to get really cozy and into my book, I usually have to have some sort of a beverage. This time of year, I want like an iced tea or something cool. But I tend to do diamond painting or like embroidery or something with my hands, and then I'll have my audiobook. If I'm in my big comfy chair, I can have a blankie or a puppy or something to be cozy with. And I think that's like the best of both worlds because I get to be crafty, but I also get to listen to my stories.
Yeah. I'm usually in the car listening to my audiobook, so it's not very cozy there.
That's not cozy, but it makes it better for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you reading right now? Do you have any book recommendations for our listeners, whether it's cozy or not?
Okay, I wasn't sure. So I'm reading, and I brought for the video. I'm reading the Grimoire Grammar School by Caitlin. I think it's Rozakis. Rozakis, I think is how you say her last name. And it's basically all the things that I love. So it's basically a couple is taking their kid to a magic school because she's a werewolf. This is on the back cover, so it's not a spoiler. Um, and so it's like there's like a PTA, but there's like werewolves and shifters and like things on the PTA board. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's so much fun. So I'm not very far into it, but I'm enjoying it. I read her debut, Dreadful, last year, I want to say, which was more of a cozy high fantasy, which I thought was really fun. The audiobook was really good too. And then as far as like one of the best books I've read this year was Sword Heart, which is by T. Kingfisher. And it's a cozy romance. Well, I don't know if it's super cozy, but it felt cozy to me. T. Kingfisher is kind of one of those authors where a lot of people categorize her work as cozy, even though it's got like kind of, like Nettle and Bone. I absolutely loved. It's one of my all-time favorite books, but it did have some kind of horror elements to
Mhm.
it. But to me, it felt cozy, which I know it sounds insane, but Sword Heart was really good, and I loved the banter between the two love interests. I thought it actually had me laughing out loud, and that doesn't happen very often. So swoony, but also really funny, and that was a really good read this year.
Do you have any new projects that you'd like to share or promote?
Yeah, so I am currently working on a little Christmassy surprise. So I
Ooh.
haven't. I guess by the time this goes live, it'll be announced. But as of right now, it's a secret. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm finishing up work on my, it's a Christmas witchy rom-com.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm working on that. And then I will be getting back into the fifth full-length book in the Sugar Shack series. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm hoping to have that out sometime this fall, or if not, then early 2026, which sounds insane to even say that, but
But
we are a day away from
yeah,
July,
the
and
end
it's
of
like, oh my gosh.
2025 will be here before we know it. I
Exactly.
I actually have the first book in the Sugar Shack series on my um on my shelf, and I wanted to get through this one for our um
Okay.
talk today, but I haven't. I was like, ooh, I want to jump into that one too. I got them both at
I
the same time, but I
Yeah,
didn't get
I
to it
know.
yet.
It's really fun. I love that series. I'm glad it's getting some love. It was one of those like passion project ones, and at first it didn't quite take off, and now that it's finally starting to get attention, I'm like, "Oh, yay." It's exciting.
So how can listeners find you?
So the best place to kind of hang out or connect would be my reader group. It's on Facebook. It's the Batwings Book Club. And if you've read Holly's books, you know. It's one of those, if you know, you know. But yeah, the Batwings Book Club is my reader group on Facebook. I'm there every single day. It's wonderful. And then I think the next best place, like if you're looking for, I do have several series. So if you want to know where to start, there is on my main webpage, which is daniellegarrettbooks.com. There's a tab at the top that has reading order, and you can see the different series and how some of them interact with each other. So that's a really good place if you're looking for how to get into my books. But if you want to interact with me directly, the reader group is the best place. I'm there all the time.
And I'll make sure to add all those links to the show
Oh,
notes.
perfect. Okay. Thank you. I
I
appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. I do appreciate when authors do put their books in order,
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's when where depending on where you're purchasing your book, especially if it's in store, and the book doesn't say book 3 or book 2 or whatever, you don't
Right.
know, and then you're like, you can. That happened with me with it's a cozy fantasy series, and of course it's going to escape me now.
They're,
But yeah, I do appreciate when authors put their series in order. And when they have,
yeah.
I think some will do like novellas where they mix the worlds a little bit, and it's like, oh, it's good to know where that is so I don't feel
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah, I do that because I have so many, like, because I
Mhm.
write in those two main worlds. There is some crisscross and some little cameos because there's nothing that I love more than a little Easter egg moment. That's just in any type of media. I love that.
Yeah.
So I tend to bake those into my own books, but I realize that it can create confusion. So I definitely want like a good place where people can go. And I actually made they're free little downloads, just PDF files that you can download that have custom art that I had done where there's a scene, and then there's book spines, and so you can actually color them in and keep
Oh,
track of
fun.
which of my books you read. So that's
Oh,
kind
that's
of a
fun.
fun little extra, if anybody wants that. But yeah, there's the trackers, and then there's the file that shows you how like all the Beechwood books connect, and like which, if you want to read like chronological through the entire thing, you can. But even if you just want like a certain series, I also have those listed in order. So it's hopefully a good resource for people who are trying to figure out where they would like to begin. So
Yeah, I think so. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
yeah, thank you for having me and having this wonderful podcast. I now have to go binge the whole backlist. I'm so
Yay!
excited. Thank you for giving us a platform, especially those of us like myself that are indie published. We don't get a ton of these types of opportunities. So I'm very grateful to be here and very excited.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.